Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Super Tees video. And do you feel hard stuck? Like no matter how many games you play, no matter how many seasons go by, or maybe even years, you're just stuck in the same rating threshold. You just can't climb. Well, today's video is going to be great for you. I'm going to be covering some of the major things that are holding you back and what you can do about it to start climbing. One of the first major things that is holding you back in PvP is that you're trying to be too flashy. You know, these big setups, huge crowd control chains, and trying to be the playmaker, be the faker of the arena match. And what is most important for breaking through a kind of a sticking point is getting the consistency of your basics. And one of those basic things is damage output. So do not be afraid to just shove your cooldowns whenever you have them. You can see at the start of this match that I have pressed combustion almost as my second global cooldown. I want to make sure that I'm maximizing my damage at all opportunities, but I am also not overextending. I'm putting myself in a perfect defensive position to avoid the attacks of my enemies. This is very important to take into consideration if you are playing a class that is targeted frequently, something like a fire mage in this instance, is that you are focused on damage output and staying back. Another very important point to consider when jumping into PvP is that you have a strategy. Any strategy is better than no strategy. If three players are going in and each of them have a different idea of what they want to do to get the game completed, one player wants to attack the warrior, one player wants to attack the windwalker monk, one player wants to attack the druid, and the other one wants to CC the warrior, this level and layer of confusion is likely going to lead to a lot of defeats, especially at lower ratings. I'm thinking 1600 to 1900. So one thing that you can do to start helping secure your team more victories is to just outline a very basic strategy in the waiting room. The first layer of basic strategies would be to type out, I want to attack the warrior, let's crowd control the healer. Or in some instances, you may want to attack the healer, let's crowd control the DPS. But to make this very clear as soon as possible, now of course it is solo shuffle, and some people are really hard-headed and they won't want to listen to this type of organization, and there's not much you can do, but more often than not, players will organize and listen to these types of calls. One of the most basic calls that you can bring into PvP is the strategy of attacking the closest target. This is something that I don't see enough people typing about when they're discussing their strategies in 3v3 or solo shuffle. They'll usually pick one target as this target we're going to attack, this target we CC, and that's fine as an entry-level strategy, but a more advanced level strategy is to attack whoever is pushing in the most aggressively. This is going to be one of the most safest ways to play. This is going to enable you to protect your team the best. And in The Art of War, a book that I'm reading right now, defense is always the most important. Let the opponent present a mistake to you that you can take advantage of, as opposed to playing too aggressively, overextending, and making mistakes. So you really want to focus on attacking enemies who are closest to your healer, who are pushing in the most aggressively, and focus on shutting them down and pushing them back. And when you do that, you're going to start to contain your enemies in certain locations and give your team more of an advantage and more of an edge to be able to complete the round and to be able to find victory. So this is very important. Any strategy is better than no strategy. Attacking the closest target to your healer is a really good basic strategy. But if you're really struggling, just pick something you're going to attack, pick something you're going to CC, but make sure you got a strategy. Another very common mistake that is likely holding you back is playing too aggressively when you don't have defensive cooldowns. You want to always be monitoring your personal defensive cooldowns, no matter what your class is. And if you gauge that, hey, I don't have any answers to trade defensively at the moment, where am I currently on the map? Am I too aggressive? Should I be back with my healer? These are the types of things that you want to be calculating in your mind at any given moment. So my Feral Druid here has pushed behind the pillar, but he has survival instincts. So he's activated that, ran behind the pillar, and was able to soak damage while that defensive cooldown was active. Now, if my druid makes a push without either me backing up with defensives, but you can see him pulling back to me, staying at my side, looking for cyclones, and not going around the pillar, not going out of my line of sight until I'm able to stabilize them with something like a pain suppression. So you always want to be aware of this. If you have defensive cooldowns, you can play aggressive. You can stand on top of the enemies. You can look for for crowd control, try and make pushes. But as your defensive cooldowns start to slim, you want to be paying very much more close attention to where your healer is. Are they getting crowd controlled? How can you assist and aid them and prevent it? Like right here, my Feral Druid playing back at the pillar now, along with my Hunter. As our defensive cooldowns are starting to slim, there's really no reason for us to continue to push, as we are likely going to be throttled out of the match if we keep playing aggressive until we've fully recovered, and then we have made a push. So always monitor your defensive cooldowns and don't make a greedy push when you don't have any. Okay, now that we've covered those 3 major ways to get past your sticking point, we're going to put them all together. So the first focus was your team should focus on doing maximum amount of damage output while not compromising their positioning. So by doing this, if you're the ranged DPS, you want to be pulling the melee DPS back and into a bad position. So here I see my warrior pushing forward and the Windwalker pushing forward. Our mage is going to pull the Windwalker back behind the pillar, and we are going to switch to the Windwalker as they overextend, always attacking the target that is closest while attempting to maximize your damage. This will force the Windwalker now to run away and be in a position where they're not doing damage, and enable your team to get more output and to start getting ahead here as we are pressuring the Balance Druid and now getting polymorphs onto the Windwalker Monk. As the healer or as a team, you do want to be rotating together away from the fight. So here I'm beside my mage trying to keep control on this Windwalker while pulling away from the Balance Druid and line of sighting them whenever we can. We got things like Static Field Totem and Earth Grab Totem as well to try and accomplish this. Drop a Healing Tide. We'll use our stun on the Windwalker. They're the closest to our team. We swap to the Windwalker Monk at any opportunity that we see when this is presented to us, when we're just going to continually have them crowd controlled, always playing at a pillar, always trying to line of sight potential cyclones, interrupt them, ground them, get into a better position, reposition with the mage, focus on damage output, focus on a good defensive position, wait for your opponents to get over eager, wait for them to compromise their positioning, because look what I said, when you don't have defensive cooldowns, where should you not be pushing in? This Windwalker has just used Diffuse Magic. Their defenses are starting to slim, so we're going to static field them even further away from their healer and continue to try and put them into a bad position out of line of sight, as that is going to open up the best opportunity for us. Now I can see our mage in a Cyclone. That likely means we are going to be the target. So we're going to stun the Windwalker, run away, reposition away from the enemy healer, continue to try and drag them into a bad position, and try and isolate the Windwalker, to whom now has had to use their Fortifying Brew, which is another defensive cooldown, as well as Iron Bark. We're still just attacking into those defenses, but polymorphing the monk here is also great. As soon as defensive cooldowns come up, crowd controlling that target and limiting their damage output, because you're likely to not be able to take them down during this time, is a really good tactic to just totally neuter their pressure and their damage. But now their defensive cooldowns have been pretty much slimmed through and cut down. We've been cutting the Windwalker, pulling him into corners away from his team, and we are just able to blast him out and be able to finish the match. And this is the type of strategy that you do want to be implementing when you can. You also want to be aware of it when you're the melee DPS, which is why you got to take all of these lessons all at the same time simultaneously, and you will start to climb rapidly. It will be insane how fast you're going to start skyrocketing up on the ladder. So I hope that these lessons and tips were helpful to you. If they were, make sure to smash the subscribe button and the like button, comment down below as well for the algorithm. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.